Thank you once again. Welcome to another edition. Some few hours we were together and we looked at the history of LGBTQI plus. We looked at different theories, and of course, one that was stunning was the binary concept. And so I hope you guys are still doing further research and doing more research so that we can have a really good and healthy topical discussion so that at least we can enlighten more people in the society and of course even the government as well. My name is Isaac Merori and welcome again to this segment. This time I want us to look at last time we stopped at where the binary theory concept looked at identity as a choice. And so I don't know how many of you agree with that or agree to that. But for me, I think will not expose my thinking. You'll probably read my thinking through these pieces that I'm doing on social media. But anyhow, looking at really choice or something to volunteer, as a black person, am I able to say that I am not a black person? Of course, I can say I'm not African. I could be black but born in outside Africa. Of course, that we it's a foregone conclusion. We say that you don't have to be black to be an African. But for those who are lovers of reggae music, there is a song by Busy Signal. It is called African People, Black. It goes like Martin Luther Black, Malcolm X Black. So the stunning or the really very important phrase in that music is when they say Bill Clinton Black. And so this is probably an example of what is happening in the Americas and in their society, and especially this musician comes from Jamaica. And so looking at really identity as a choice is something that is really trending among the youths, probably without their conscious or without them being aware. And so music really pushes a lot of cultural significance or insignificance as well. And so the entertainment industry has been used, the media has been used, and of course governments have been used. Like I said, in Kenyan government, in Kenya, the executive, the parliament have always refused the LGBTQI plus registration, and even the teaching of the GOTI teachings by the UN of comprehensive sexuality education, which teaches children to choose whether to be a boy or a girl, to choose when to have sex, and so on and so forth. These are really touchy issues that the West are really pushing into the society. And one thing can only be concluded that this is one of the strategies of depopulating the society. And of course, other uncouth means have been used in the global south to stop the population boom, which they call it is overpopulation. They have used vaccines, they have used medicines, they have sterilized women without knowing, they have used the medical background really. They're using food. Of course, there's food colonialism or imperialism, whereby they are now bringing GMO food technology, saying that the seeds that we plant for organic food are old seeds. We've been planting them for almost 4 million years or 400,000 years or whatever they say for. And so we need new seeds because our environment is changing. We need more chemicals, but we've been doing more chemicals without needing them. So it is actually our greed that drove us to be doing more chemicals. And so today everything is chemicalized. including family planning. People used to do it naturally, but today uh, people engage in sexual intercourse, and a lady carries all the burden. Sex happens in her, and she's the one who stands a risk of probably getting a child that they were not ready to raise, and so they are forced to run to pharmacies and chemists to go and procure emergency pills. And so the world is really becoming something that is really not what we used to know it as. And of course, there's a lot of chemical in food, there's a lot of fast foods, there are a lot of artificial foods, and so on and so forth. And so, looking at another theory, this was just by the way, but we are really in the question whether identity is voluntary or a choice. Like, we don't even have a choice to choose what we eat. The market people, the corporates, the industrialists are giving us whatever they are able to make. And of course, patenting food, seeds, and fertilizer is not the way to go, because this is actually denying people freedom to live. You have controlled everything. You're controlling the population. You want to control even life itself. So we need to be careful out there, and proponents of organic foods need to come up as many and come out as many as possible, so that we can be able to counter these industrial and capitalistic ideas of one person putting the lives of many at risk just for some profits. It could be even the LGBTQI plus organization could be part of this. We don't know. We just in a very big limbo, too much confusion. And so I look at a theory by Joseph J. Hayes of 1970, when now these clamor for LGBTQI came up. And so he looks at the theory of gay speak, the language. And of course, he talks about 3 scenarios, how you may want to know a group is a subgroup. And in this instance, he gives an example of the gay community, because it was really a secret movement, an underground movement. And so there is secrecy. That is the first one. There is secrecy. The second, or even, and the secrecy may be out of fear or threats. Like now, the Kenyan society is threatening this underground movement, and I hope we won't reach at a place or a point where, like it happened in America last year, somebody went into a gay community bar or club and sprayed bullets to those guys. At the end of the day, these are human beings that need patience, and if you think and you're convinced that they need to be corrected, please let that be your purpose. That's why you live today in the times when this thing is coming out. And so the second point of gay speak, or subgroup underground language, is really the social settings. And so, like in Kenya, the social setting is anti-gay. And so that sets the agenda of gay speak. And so that's why churches are coming up and describing the gay, the LGBTQ community. The parliament, the government, they're coming out and describing what they think this organization is. And so lastly, there is activism or radicalism. And this is now what we faced some 6 years or so ago. when this group came out and really requested to be registered. Unfortunately, the first president of the organization uh, turned a new leaf, and he ended up being heterosexual and really dropped from the group. Fortunately, we never saw any violence against the president, but I'm sure he was ranted, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, you just don't go against a movement and leave scot-free. So, like I said, the dual personality theory, or the binary theory, really is a Western thing. That's why the West, if you receive Christianity from Europe, you are likely to have two competing ideas or concepts: the concept of God and versus the concept of science, the concept of heaven versus the concept of hell, the concept of reward versus the concept of condemnation. This is a dual society members thinking, and it is a dominant idea among the Europeans. Now, for the monist, we Africans, we just look at everything as a unit. Okay, there may be hierarchical positioning, but everything really exists in one circular. Again, that's how we look at our history. We look at our history as a circular as well. The Europeans will look at their history from in a linear perspective, and that's why for a European it is very important to know the date. For an African, the date is much less important than the event is. So the event is everything to an African, and the events mark time for an African. But for a European or an African who is born in the European context, time and the year really explains or gives a following. And of course, it is both from the past and in the future. It gives them a very stable way of planning. But for an African, planning ahead, sometimes it could be a taboo or something that is not really acceptable because you cannot guarantee yourself your future. And so when this idea came out of gay speak, and of course the three areas of identifying the dual personality, because whenever they hide, they speak as gays whenever they are within their community, but when they come to the dominant cultural society, the public, they will talk like heterosexuals, and this gave rise to what I called bisexuals. So bisexuals are people who are gay but in secret, but in public they are heterosexual. And so they have a husband and they have another husband of their same gender. The other husband is from a different gender. Yeah. So it is also for subgroup. They really do good in writing articles, and so they use literature and media to sell their ideas at this stage, the third stage of activism or radicalism. And so people who are not gay but stood for gays in America in between 1960 and 70 using their platform, a man like James Baldwin and Truman Capote, there was Gore Vidal, and there was Tennessee Williams. Really, they were outsiders, and so they portrayed themselves as people, portrayed even gays as people who were outsiders, and they stood by that, that is the right. Also, people who represented and were very loud in this topic, like Andrew Holleran, there was Edmund White, and of course there was Armistead Maupin. For them, they represented the positive functionality of this community, the subgroups, and so they looked at these from the human right perspective, and really said that they share identities, because and of course they used the US media. But out of this, really what came out in the 80s, because this happened in the 60s and 70s, was attention and awareness of this group. And so that helped the gay community really to be accepted in, like, for example, the medical institutions, the schools, the military, and so on and so forth, as they are. And so, even without policy and law, the society accepted them, and this made it possible for them to be realized that they were suffering from HIV and AIDS. And so this brought the aspect of care, the mutuality of humanity and responsibility among themselves, and also across cultural groups. And so they were able to be taken care of. And through also traditional medias, this gazing was they started giving themselves the identity of choice. And for example, there were programs, like for example, there was a program called the Queer as Folks, saying that the members of gay community are men, and so they can relate with other men, they can associate, and they can have discussions around machismo topics. So there was the L Word program, there was another one called Logo, and so there was, of course, another one that was really detailed. It was called Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. So it really had to come out that way. So the queer eye for the straight eye, for the straight guy. And so it is a way of trying to identify with one another. So having discussed these, I would like to finally talk about organizations that have really been seen to be supporting the gay community, the LGBTQI plus community, and there are quite many. I may mention a few if time allows. And so we've had something that has been called it's really not coming out in the open and say that we're supporting gay community or LGBTQI plus community, but they use sublime advertisement in the corporate world to push up sales. And so they look at the clamor for human rights in America is a big thing. And so any minority group can really give you a lot of traction. And so some of these organizations include the Saab, the car industry. There was the Saturn, there is Virgin Atlantic, there is American Express, there is Absolute Vodka, Takira Gin, AT&T, the MCI, the Chase Bank, Commercial Chemical Bank, Citibank, Avian, Perrier, Flower Direct, Giffen Records, Quality Paperback Book, the Viking, Stroke Penguin publishers, and other companies like the Seagram bottled gin, which had 6 men, Lawrence, Wilder, Oscar of Arabia, Walt Whitman, Edgar Allan Poe, Ludwig van Beethoven, and Edgar Degas, who represented the gay community in the advert. Fashion industry, there is Dolce & Gabbana in 1999. There is a furniture organization called IKEA in 94. There is the Virgin Cola, which had gays kissing one another, gay men, but they masqueraded as roommates. There was Volkswagen, and of course, very many organizations. But those that really stood for the gay community, and not really outrightly gay community, they stood for non-discrimination of people by their sexual activities and whatever identity that is in the minority. Include the motorbike industry or company, the Harley Davidson, IBM, Kodak, Time Warner, and 3M, which really stood for the minority. So that's all for now. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time. We'll have more and more deep conversation around this subject. So keep cool, be aware, look for more information, and remember to like, subscribe, and also go to the comment section and also dislike. Thank you so much.